We're going to do, as Republicans, we're going to do everything that we can to get you elected, and you're going to be our next governor. And thank you for all your hard work. This isn't going to be an easy race, as you know, but we are going to work hard and help you be successful. One of the things that you mentioned is that you want to provide opportunity in the state of Idaho, and here in North Idaho, we are about to lose one of the greatest opportunities and greatest assets that we have in North Idaho and in the state of Idaho, and potentially could have effects nationwide. And that is the sale of a major utility company, Avista, to Hydro One, who is primarily owned by Ontario, Canada.
47%.
So we are about ready to shift a major infrastructure utility company to a foreign country that would have complete control of Avista, who potentially in the future could sell it to a foreign country, such as Uranium One went to the Russians, and I believe that went through Canada first and then was sold to the Russians. And as of right now, from what we understand, according to the staff of the IPUC, that all federal regulations have been approved for this. There's no other federal regulations that need to be approved. The feds are on. 5 states need to buy into this.
2 already have.
2 of them already have. So you know a little bit about this. Okay. For up here in North Idaho, I wish you would have mentioned this right off the bat, because the Columbia River Treaty is, that's important. But compared to turning over the rights to our waterways, 13 dams, to a utility company, Hydro One, that is very poorly run, $10 billion in debt, and we're going to sell this infrastructure for $5.3 billion. The replacement cost of 13 dams is tens of billions of dollars times that. And as of right now, of course, Montana signed on, Alaska signed on. With Alaska, Hydro One gets 2 gold mines with an estimated reserve of $10 billion of gold in those 2 gold mines. They've signed on. Oregon isn't taking any public comments. Washington is most likely a sign-on. Basically right now, Idaho, the Idaho PUC, Public Utility Commission, can stop this. We are hearing nothing from Governor Otter. As far as we understand, Governor Otter will sell this in a heartbeat. He's not doing. They serve. He's the IPUC, from what I understand, is appointed by Governor Otter. Serves at the pleasure of Governor Otter.
Get appointed there. They don't necessarily all serve at the pleasure. But go ahead.
Okay. All right. And you're going to know more about this than I do, and I appreciate that. So they have set a date of August 14th to have this done, signed, and over. Avista goes to Canada. As of right now, because the new Premier Ford, has fired or has caused the resignation of the entire board of Hydro One. They have resigned. And the IPUC, we're going to have a technical hearing. That has been postponed. But we still don't know what the status of this is. If it is signed by August 14th or signed before you become elected governor, this is a done deal. If this is postponed till after the election and you become governor, will you stop this sale? And as lieutenant governor now, what can you do? Are you in favor of this? Or what can you do as influence of lieutenant governor to put pressure down in Boise to put a stop? Up here in Idaho, we got 99% opposition to this. We've had 2 public hearings. The last and best attended public hearing, there is 100% opposition to the sale of Avista. I'm a board member of the Northwest Property Owners Alliance. We have been fighting this. We have started another group called Avista Customer Group. They're fighting this. Norm Semenko out of Boise is our attorney. He is helping us to fight this. We are getting no help from the state. We need help. The people up here in Idaho do not want to be owned by Hydro One, a very, very poorly run utility company that has got extreme green energy philosophy. Idaho Conservation League wrote the plans to shut down Coal Strip in Montana 10 years earlier than what they were going to run to 2037. Through this deal, they have agreed to shut it down by 2027, and that all came from Idaho Conservation League. Plus, there are some other companies that are getting benefits. Over $50 million is going to be paid out to Avista top executives if this sale goes through as payoff money. So there's some real problems with this. You are in a unique position right now, Lieutenant Governor, and potentially Governor of the state of Idaho. What are we going to do to stop this from going to Canada? Thank you very much.
Here's what I know. Maybe what I don't know might be more, but here's what I know. I believe the Washington PUC has postponed their hearing to find out how that election takes place of the new board. I read that the other day, and I'm old enough. I was around when I told you I had paper straws. And this was even more controversial. The purchase of Utah Power and Light by Scottish Power.
Yes.
So we already have a precedent in Idaho to where a foreign entity has bought a utility. And you need to realize that the water system in Boise is run by the French. And a lot of water systems. So having utilities by their very nature are what a lot of people want, because they're a constant source of, not big wild returns, but they're a constant source of cash. The utility itself is a government regulated utility, but the ownership of any utility is a private fungible asset that you can buy on the stock market. If you're the Bank of China, there's nothing to say you couldn't have gone on the market and bought every stock, every share of Avista in the private market. So but it's a line between the utility that's regulated and what is under the regulatory utility. And there are things that Public Utilities Commission can do. But we ran through this scenario with Scottish Power because it is very important up here, but you got to think that power for irrigation in the Scottish Power area, that was the second biggest expense of almost every farm over there, was their electricity. And of course that went from good old little Utah Power and Light to Scottish Power, and now Warren Buffett owns it. It's part of Rocky. It's part of, and that's one of the issues that is that utility. The security analysts tell me is going to sell. It is literally one of the smallest. Now Idaho Power is also in that. But the thing about Idaho Power is they're making enough money. They're kind of keeping the wolves away because their stock price is so high relative to the way they're operating. But there are very few utilities. And the question is who's going to own it. I am not excited about this at all when I saw it to begin with. I just, that it was going to sell, and I think if you unwound it tomorrow, which they tell me the public utilities say they have to have a guarantee, they have to know what the rates are going to be, but they can only do it for so long. Yesterday when I flew up here, there was a gal from the PUC that was in a row or two rows in front of me, and they had an IRP. Did anybody go to the IRP meeting that Vista had up here yesterday? They had their first one. They have to do an integrated resource plan, and she said we are not expecting a big turnout, And I says, after that turnout you had up here, that I'm sure you were at, that they had about the purchase, said, that's where the decision is made. That's what's within the corporate structure of Avista that's in the state of Idaho. What's their mix going to be in new wind, new solar, transmission? How are you going to integrate the new wind projects come on with hydro? That's the decision that the Idaho Public Utilities Commission has some say in. Did anybody in those hearings say that the Public Utilities Commission could stop it?
It is my understanding that if the Idaho PUC does not vote for this, votes it down, it's taken off the table. It's done. I think there's three things, and I can't remember because I did get a briefing on this. The problem is when it becomes a contested case, we have to, the governor, those utility commissioners are just like any other government entity. They're serving as a quasi-judicial deal, a quasi-judicial position, and you can't intervene with them. I mean, you can put out a press release and say, but to call them and say you can't do that is a violation of the, it's just like telling the judge, the judge is making a decision on somebody that did something to say, we want you to make your decision that way, because they're operating as a quasi-judicial entity at that point in time. I think there's three ways, what's the cost going to be? And I think it's only like 3 years. And it's within that integrated resource plan. It's how they implement, because they come up and say, here's our plan, here's where we're going to go, and then we're going to come to you and ask for rate increases or decreases predicated on that. You know, the hydropower industry in the Pacific Northwest, we have an automatic increaser or decreaser. The same thing with the gas industry. If the price of gas goes down, you know, of course the utilities always take credit for it. Oh, we lowered your rate. Well, it was in law that they had to. And then when it goes up, then they blame the law. When it goes down, they take credit for it. That's human nature. But I'm not excited about it. And I think even if it is postponed, and the way I understand it is because the biggest stockholder, the province, has basically got the resignation of the board that the Washington PUC delayed their decision on. When I first heard about it, I thought, well, prior to the sale of this, remember that Governor Inslee didn't want any carbon electrons crossing the line over here. And so they came to me and I says, great, we'll take the carbon electrons, but we want the cheaper power. If Jay Inslee wants to say we're the greenie weenies over in over in That's okay.
Over in Washington, and they want that power, and they want us to say that you know, all of a sudden Idaho, with all their hydropower, we're the ones using more carbon. Let it reflect. And so this process was taking place way before the Ontario Canadians got involved, and that's because it was Washington Water Power. They're the big user, and they're very dependent upon their PUC. Alaska, I think it's just gas that goes up into Alaska.
It's a subsidiary.
Yeah, they kind of got that off of their shelf. But really, the big one, well, and Washington, and of course the issue there is the operation of Libby Dam, which is a big darn deal, and it's part of it. But I think there's three things that they have to do, and then if the PUC turns them down, then they'll litigate. They'll go to court against the PUC to allow it to happen. Now the utility that's here, we get to regulate what they get as far as the price of power. But the mothership, you know, Rocky Mountain Power's a classic example. The ratepayers down there, that's owned by Warren Buffett. You don't get to tell him how he makes the Kona boots because it's part of the same company. All you have control over is the operating entity inside the state of Idaho as a public utility commission. because that utility there is part of the massive Berkshire Hathaway empire. So that's what I know. We're not excited about it. If that company was going to sell out, I'd much rather had it. But the issue that somebody said, would you really want it? I was hoping that it was going to be somebody else, so we'd have 3 different utilities in Idaho, so we could kind of maybe play one against another, try and keep our rates down, keep our affordable power here in Idaho. But that company, if Washington or somebody or basically the 2 parties disagree, I'll guarantee you that company's going to be back on the market and somebody else is going to buy it. And I'd rather,
Russia.
I don't know that that'll happen. So.
Related to this, and I know Tim was saying that the feds have signed off, and that may be totally true. I was on a conference call with Russ Fulcher last night, who's back in D.C., and he said this is not going to go through, and he didn't enumerate, but he said there were 13 big obstacles back there. Would you know anything about that?
No, I don't know what Congress.
I don't know what he's talking about. He just was pretty sure this was not going to go through. So I hope he's right, but I know.
Now we'll have to figure out who the next buyer is.
Yeah.
There you go.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that yourself personally as Lieutenant Governor or potentially Governor, is that there is really nothing that you can do, and that the process is going to happen.
I mean, I think the legitimate question to ask PUC is, of those things that they have to do, is there anything that they're in violation? Then you can say no. But the way I understand it, I think there's 3 or 4 things that PUC has to approve of for the sale of a utility, and that can be the Athol water system, or it can be Washington Water Power. That's in law. That any regulated utility, because like I said, the French own the water system in Boise. The Scottish used to own the electricity over there. This is not a new thing in Idaho. This is and frankly, it would have been probably the government of British Columbia, which is much different than the attitude of the Ontario government, or fill in the blank about who it is that's going to buy it. But that is a private entity that you only have so much control over how you can stop it. So, but they have to follow those criteria. But that's interesting. I'll call Russ and find out what he knows.
Thank you.
So, yeah.